forward. And first, I'm going to start off with the waiver from Campus Rec that we're reading off at the beginning of class. So in order to make these classes as freely accessible as possible to our participants, we will be using a verbal warning and assumption of risk at the beginning of the class. Participation in this online class is voluntary. Physical activity programs may result in injury, and by participating, you assume the risk of injury that may result from your participation. We strongly recommend that you participate from a space that is suitable for this activity. For example, make sure that you've moved nearby furniture and other potential hazards. If you're participating in a yoga class like this one, or a class that involves laying on the ground, we recommend using a mat, or if you don't have one, a carpeted area. Participants are encouraged to stop if they experience pain or injury and should seek appropriate medical advice or care as needed. William & Mary Health and Wellness strongly recommends that each participant have an annual physical examination and follow the advice of your healthcare provider before participating. And that is going to be the only clinical part of this entire class, I absolutely promise. So, whenever you're ready, the most important thing to remember about this class is that I want you to put yourself first. I want you to go where your body would like to go throughout class today. So my words are suggestions, they're not mandates. Do what you would like to do. We're actually going to start standing today because a good portion of our class is going to be built on balancing and just sort of grounding down through our feet. So we're going to start standing on our mats. However, you guys, it's easiest for you to get there. And I'm going to try to avoid adjusting the camera as much as possible, but I might have to just a little bit today. So bear with me on that one. All right. But standing on your mat, I want you to look down to your feet, maybe rock onto your toes, onto your heels, the sides of the feet. And really build a foundation that feels comfortable, that feels stable. We're going to start in Tadasana today. So there should be a micro bend in your knees. We're not locking out the knee joints here. Your arms, the palms can flash forward like headlights, or they can just sort of hang by your side, or you can find a hand position that works for you, whatever feels really good to your body today. And maybe you close your eyes or you find a soft gaze on something in front of you in your room. But we're going to begin this class, even though we're standing, the way we begin all of our classes, by bringing that awareness to our breath. So inhaling through the nose and exhaling through the nose. I don't want you to change your breath yet. I don't want you to judge how the breath feels. I just want you to notice it. Especially when we're in standing, I want you to notice how your breath feels as you try to find stillness here, as opposed to seated or lying down. Maybe when we close our eyes and we try to stand, we sway a little bit, or we rock. That's okay. Finding that subtle movement can be a really good way to find a little bit of calming energy inside. Still breathing in and out through the nose. Maybe you begin to notice how the length of your inhales compared to the length of your exhales. Maybe they feel about even. Maybe one feels longer than the other. Whichever one is true, that's okay. You're just noticing your breath. And then maybe you take a little bit more of an active presence and you try to make the length of your inhales match the length of your exhales. Sometimes we can do this by counting our breath. So I want you to pick a number that works for you. Maybe it's 4 or 3 or 7, whatever that number is. Inhale into it, take a pause, and then exhale the same number out of it and pause. Do this a few times at your own count. And especially since we're standing today, maybe you imagine your breath and this count is kind of like an elevator. So as you inhale, the breath comes up the body from the toes. And as you exhale, the breath goes back down the body towards the feet. Through this, we get to feel what the body feels like this morning. Just get acquainted with how the joints feel, what the hips feel like today. Take a few more breath cycles at your count. And notice if the number you picked feels challenging this morning or if it feels more comforting. Both are okay. I'm going to challenge you to stick with both throughout class. So the number that you picked, we're going to come back to it. If you'd like to set an intention for today's class, I'd invite you to do that now. An intention could be a mantra, it could be the reason you stepped onto your mat today, but it's where you're going to draw a little bit of your energy from throughout class. So whatever that is for you, I'd like you to inhale into it and exhale out of it, keeping that length in the spine. The shoulders come down and out from the ears. If you're having a hard time coming up with an intention today, you are more than welcome to join me in mine, which, especially because we're balancing today, is harmony instead of balance. Harmony, not balance. Maybe very gently our eyes stay closed, but we can bring some subtle movement to the body. We can bring each fingertip to the thumb and back again. We can start rocking on the feet onto the toes and the heels and the sides of the feet. Really whatever feels good. Maybe you shrug the shoulders up to the ears and exhale them down the spine. And then when you're ready, your eyes can open. I want you to bring your gaze down to your toes first and really build your foundation here because we're going to wake the spine up a little bit this morning. So from the feet up, we feel nice and tall. And then I want you to inhale those arms overhead. On your exhale, that left hand is going to come down towards that right foot, generous bend in the knees. I want you to draw a semicircle in front of your toes. Inhale, that right hand comes up, and we're just making circles with the spine. Exhale, the left hand down towards the right. Draw that semicircle, and inhale up. Now I want you to go at your own pace. So maybe you go a little bit faster or a little bit slower, but you're following your breath. Exhaling down and inhaling up. And on your next time at the top, I just want you to reverse motion. So that right hand will come down to the outside of the left foot and you'll draw that semicircle. We still have that generous bend in the knees. We're just waking the body up this morning. Inhale up. Exhale down. 2 more times wherever you're at. And when you're done, just exhaling those hands down. We're back in that Tadasana. Maybe shaking it out a little bit. Fabulous job. Now coming towards the top of your mat, if you're not already there, I want you to inhale those arms overhead and exhale with a nice flat back to your forward fold. Now this forward fold, we still have that generous bend in the knees because we're trying to get our heart as close to our thighs as we can. Maybe once we're here, we grasp opposite elbows, create a basket for the head, and sway the spine side to side. Or maybe you walk your fingertips to the left and to the right along the sides of the mat. And then coming back to stillness, we're going to inhale for a halfway lift. So inhale, trace those fingertips up the shins, pause around the knees in a nice flat tabletop back, but there's no weight in the hands. And then exhale all the way back down. Fingertips going to tent on the mat. Very gently, I want you to step that left foot back and that right foot back. And we're in our plank position already. And then it's our first one today. So let's bring our knees to the ground, untuck the toes, keeping the elbows as close to the body as we can. Let's lower all the way down until our forehead or cheek can rest on the mat. And now I want you to press the tops of your feet into the mat. Feel the kneecaps lift so you could almost slide a sheet of paper underneath them. There's no weight in the fingertips. As on your inhale, you're just gonna float the shoulders off the mat. So you give me a little wave. Exhale back down, relax the whole body. Press the tops of the feet into the mat again. Feel the kneecaps lift. Inhale very gently up with a little bit of weight in the fingertips this time. And exhale back down, release the whole body. This time, I want you to tent your fingertips wider than mat width distance onto the ground. Press the tops of your feet into the mat, and then feel yourself press up until your elbows are at about 90 degrees. You can bring each elbow or shoulder to the ground in front of you, however many times you'd like, before relaxing the body back down. On an inhale, I want you to tuck the toes, bring the hands underneath the shoulder heads. On your exhale, you're gonna press the body up and back to your first downward dog of class. Ooh, take the time here, walk the feet out, bend the knees, sink the heels towards the ground. And then very gently, I want you to bring your knees to the ground and untuck those toes. We're coming towards our tabletop position. And you're gonna know that you are in your very best tabletop position when your wrists are stacked right underneath your shoulders, your knees are stacked right underneath your hips. If you take a peek through your legs, you shouldn't be able to see your feet. Our backs are nice and flat here, but if our wrists are uncomfortable, let's come down to the forearms and just replace our wrists with our elbows. It's the exact same thing. Wherever you're at, we're just gonna find some cat and cow. On your inhale, let that belly button come down towards the mat, the gaze comes up. On your exhale, you're gonna push the mat away. It's like a string. It's pulling the belly button up towards the ceiling and the gaze goes under. Inhale, that belly button comes down. Maybe the toes tuck. Exhale, you push the ground away. You flatten those feet out and you round. I want you to find this 4 more times at your own pace. Feeling free to exaggerate the movements as you'd like. Maybe rolling out the hips, rolling out the shoulders, whatever really works for you. And then once you're done and we've come back to stillness in the center of our mat, we're gonna begin to engage our core. So I want you to imagine that you're gonna draw your wrists and your knees together, almost like you're trying to create a wrinkle in the middle of your mat. You should feel the belly button tuck up and slightly back. We've engaged our core, which in yoga is the abs, but also the lower back. And then I want you to inhale, float that right foot up, toes point down to the ground behind you. If you're here today, that's incredible. Maybe you want to inhale, float that left arm out in front of you as well, kind of like a teeter-totter. And maybe on your exhale, you want to curl that elbow to meet the knee and extend back out. And exhale to curl, inhale back out. Last time, we're going to curl and hold for 3, 2, 1. Extend back out. Let's float that wrist and that knee back down towards the mat. Let's flip our right palm so our fingertips face towards our knees while they're on the mat, and just bring each fingertip to the thumb and back again. Giving our wrists a little release here, shaking it out. Come back to your tabletop, engage that core again. Feel like you're knitting the rib cage together. Same thing on the other side. Let's inhale, float that left foot up, toes point down towards the ground. If you're here today and this is your max, that's amazing. Maybe you want to inhale, float that right arm out in front of you. Maybe you want to exhale and curl that elbow to meet the knee and extend back out. And exhale to curl, inhale back out. Last time, exhale, curl, and we're going to hold for 3, 2, 1. Extend back out, float that hand and that knee back down towards the mat. Flip the left palm this time, do the exact same thing on this side. Shaking that wrist out, replacing it on the mat. And I want you to spread your fingertips wide here, really press into each of the fingertips as well as the L in between your index and your thumb. It's gonna protect your wrist because we're gonna inhale, tuck the toes, exhale, lift the hips up, and back for another downward dog. It's okay if this doesn't feel particularly very comfortable yet. or if it feels very challenging this morning, that's all right. We're just getting our body used to this movement. Take your dog for a little walk if you want to. Maybe you want to sink those knees down to a floating child's pose and extend back up. Wherever you can find a little more comfort in this place. We're not going to be here for too long today. Coming back to stillness though, I want you to inhale, float that right knee high to the sky. Inhale, that gaze comes in between your hands. On your exhale, as gently as you can, you're going to step that right foot forward somewhere towards that right thumb. Let's bring the left knee to the ground, left toes untuck. We have the option to stay here, or we can inhale our hands right here to the quad, or inhale, float them overhead, still trying to keep those shoulders down and out from the ears. But take a peek at my knee. It's right over top of my ankle or it's slightly behind it. If I'm going over towards the toes, I'm going to move the right foot out towards the top of my mat. Fabulous. And I just want you to breathe. We're finding stillness here. Come back to that breath count that you started with. On your next exhale, if your hands are overhead, you're going to pour them down forward to frame that front foot. On an inhale, tuck that back toe, lift that back knee. Maybe take half a step in with that back foot. We still have the option to stay here, or we can inhale up to our floating lunge. Whatever works for you. Your hands can be overhead or right here. That knee is still over or behind the ankle. The joints love to be in line. We're not going to change that for them today. And I just want you to come back to that breath count. Make sure to give yourself a little pause at the top and at the bottom of your breath cycle. Exhale, pour those hands back down to frame that front foot. We're going to float that right leg high to the sky and back down to meet the left. Option for a Vinyasa flow if you'd love to take one. If you want to flow together, we're going to inhale forward. Knees can come down or knees can stay up, but we're going to exhale all the way down. Flatten those feet out. Take the cobra of your choice, whichever one we did earlier that speaks to you. Make sure your feet are pressing into the mat so your knees are lifted. Exhale back down. Hands come underneath the shoulders. Inhale, tuck those toes. Exhale, press the body up and back to your downward dog. Find your comfort here as well. You know exactly where we're headed. We're just going to do the other side. So when you're ready, on an inhale, I want you to float that left leg high to the sky. Bring the gaze in between the hands. On your exhale, very gently step that left foot forward to meet that left thumb. Let right knee come down, right toes on top. We can stay here if you want with your hands framing that front foot, or you can inhale your hands right here to the quad, or you can float them overhead. Whichever one works best for you. Maybe what worked best on the other side of your body doesn't feel the greatest on this side. That's okay. And I just want you to breathe. We're opening the body up. You're getting it ready for some more movement. So maybe you bring your attention to your hips or to your knees or your ankles. All the things we're asking to do a little bit of work right now. If our arms are overhead, on an exhale, I want you to bring them down. Frame that front foot. On an inhale, tuck the back toes. Lift that right knee. Again, we have the option to stay here, or we have the option to inhale up. Beautiful. Just find your breath here. Two more breaths. On that second exhale, if our hands are overhead, let's pour them down to frame that front foot. And we're going to float that left leg high to the sky, down to meet the right in our downward dog. Option for a Vinyasa flow, if you'd love to take one, move with your breath. Inhale forward. Exhale either all the way or halfway. Inhale up. Exhale all the way back to downward dog. And then I want you to bring your knees to the ground. Untuck the toes. From the hips over the heels for a child's pose. Maybe the hands come back behind the body. And I want you to come back to your breath here. Come back to that intention if you set one. Notice what your breath count feels like here. Maybe the number you picked feels great and you're having no problem sticking to it. Maybe the number you picked doesn't really fit right now. I'm going to challenge you to stick with it just for now. Two more full breath cycles in your child's pose. This is a place of ultimate restoration. So you're welcome to come here not only during our Vinyasa flows, but at any time that you want throughout our class. This should be a place where you feel comfortable and relaxed. And when your body tells you it's ready to move, and not a second before, when your body's really ready, I want you to inhale up to that tabletop position. Take a few rounds of cat and cow here. And remember that if the breath doesn't really work for us here, we can always flip the breath cues. So we can inhale that belly button up and exhale it down. Whatever works for you. When you're ready, on an inhale, I want you to tuck the toes. On an exhale, lift the hips up and back for our downward dog. We've been here before. Maybe it feels a little more comfortable this time. Maybe not. That's okay. Inhale that gaze in between the hands for me. Exhale, I want you to take the slowest walk with as many steps possible to meet your feet with your hands at the top of your mat. Remember, in our forward folds, we have a generous bend in the knees here. Maybe you inhale for that halfway lift if it makes you feel good. Exhale all the way back down. This time your knees are going to come wide, your arms are going to come wider. You're going to inhale, scoop that air all the way up. Exhale, pull the hands down the midline. Open up to our Tadasana, our mountain pose. Shake it out a little bit. Maybe bring your gaze down to your feet. You can take a little hop, see where they like to land. That's usually where they feel the most stable. Come up onto the toes and the heels, the sides of the feet. We're going to start building on our flow and bouncing just a little bit. So whatever you need to do to feel comfortable, and know that if you're doing this on carpet, it's okay if you wobble a little more than you think you will. All right, so when you're ready, I want you on an inhale, scoop that air up. On an exhale, sink the hips down and back for your Utkatasana or your chair pose. Your weight in your feet has shifted back into your heels, so your toes, they could wave at me. Tailbone goes down and tucks slightly under, so we have a nice proud back. If you had writing on your t-shirt, you wanted the person in front of you to be able to read it. Arms can float overhead or right here at heart center. And I just want you to breathe. Sometimes it can be easier if you find a focal point in front of you in your room. We're going to be here a few more times throughout class day, so it's okay if it doesn't feel that natural yet. 2 more breaths. And on that second exhale, I want you to pour forward directly into that forward fold. Inhale for that halfway lift if it makes you feel good. Exhale back down, fingertips going to tent on the mat. You're going to peel that left foot off and very gently step it back almost like we're gonna come back to that lunge, but then I want you to step that back foot up and out to the side a little bit more, and just bring that left heel to the ground. Those left toes are still pointing up towards the top left-hand corner of your mat. And inhale up. This should feel like your warrior one. So if it doesn't, make some adjustments so that it does. Maybe you widen your stance or lengthen it, but our hips are still squared towards the front of our mat. We're not opening up to the side, not yet. Arms can float overhead. Try to keep those shoulders down and out from the ears. And you're just gonna breathe. That front knee is exactly where it likes to be. The joints feel in line. We feel powerful in this first warrior of ours. And then very gently bringing those hands back down behind us. We can open that heart up towards the ceiling. Maybe the gaze even comes up to float overhead. Maybe those hands clasp behind us and we open the heart up even more. And on your exhale, you're gonna pour that heart forward to the inside of that right knee into our humble warrior. And then release those hands, hug that knee in whenever you're ready. Hands come back to float around that front foot, and I want you to step forward, back to that forward fold. Beautiful, everybody. Inhale for that halfway lift. Exhale back down. Take a moment here. Maybe you walk the left to the right. Maybe you sway the spine. You can shake the head no and nod yes. You know exactly where we're headed on the other side. So whenever you feel ready, just coming back to stillness here. Generous bend in the knees. You're going to inhale, those arms come wide. Scoop that air all the way up. Exhale, pull those hands down. Open up to your Tadasana. Fabulous. Maybe you bring your gaze down to your feet. You can take a little hop. See where they like to land. Onto the toes, the heels, the sides of the feet. Pressing into all the corners of the feet, behind the pinky toe, the big toe, and in the heel. Brings a natural micro bend to the knees. And when you're ready, you know exactly where we're headed. Inhale, scoop those arms up. Exhale, sink down and back into that Utkatasana, your chair pose. Your weight is still in your heels, so your toes could wave at me. Chests are proud, backs are straight. And we're just gonna breathe. Two more breath cycles here. I know you can do it. On that second exhale, I want you to pour forward directly into that forward fold. Maybe you inhale for that halfway lift off of that heart up. Exhale back down. Fingertips come to tent on the mat in front of you. You're gonna peel that right foot off this time and float it back, almost like we're coming to that lunge, but you know that we're actually headed towards that warrior one on this side. So pivot that right heel towards the mat, right toes towards the top right-hand corner of the mat. Inhale those arms overhead. Beautiful. Our hips, they're still squared towards the top of the mat. We're not opening the body up yet. Exhale those shoulders down and out from the ears for me, almost like you're holding a beach ball overhead. And I just want you to breathe. Maybe you bring those hands down behind you. Open that heart up. You look up just a little bit. Maybe then those hands come to clasp behind the body and you open that heart up even more. And exhale, pour forward into our humble warrior to the inside of that left knee. And release those hands. Hug that knee in whenever you're ready. Hands come back to frame that front foot. I want you to pivot onto those right toes first. Exhale, step back toward your plank position. Option for a Vinyasa flow if you'd love to take one. Move with your breath. And remember that cat and cow, beautiful option. And we're all gonna meet in a child's pose whenever you're ready. Sinking our hips back over our heels. Coming to that place of restoration. And I just want you to come back to your breath. Notice how your breath count feels for you right now. Maybe that number you picked really still works. Maybe it doesn't, and that's okay. If your breath feels inadequate at the count that you picked, I want you to find a new number. I want you to pick a new count for your breath. Try to make it even so the length of your inhales still matches the length of your exhales. But just breathe into it. When your body tells you it's ready, and still not a second before, you're gonna inhale back up towards that tabletop position. Our wrists are stacked underneath our shoulders, our knees are underneath our hips. We cannot see our feet if we take a peek through our legs, and we feel solid. And then I want you to take a few rounds of cat and cow at your own pace, moving with your own new breath count. Try to make the movements last for as long as your count is. And then just coming back to our neutral spine in stillness whenever you're ready. On an inhale, let's tuck the toes. On an exhale, let's lift the hips up and back for your downward dog. Inhaling that gaze in between the hands. Exhale, walking or floating to meet them at the top of your mat in that forward fold. Beautiful floats that I can see from here. Inhale for that halfway lift, offer that heart up if it feels good. Exhale all the way back down. And one more time, inhale, generous bend the knees, arms come wide, scoop that air all the way up. Pull it down. Open up to your Tadasana, your strong mountain pose. We're gonna build on this flow and we're gonna balance just a little bit more. So bring it back down to the feet. Take a peek at the feet and you take a little hop. You see where they like to land. That's usually where they feel the most comfortable. Rock onto the toes, onto the heels, the sides of the feet, until you feel unmovable. And we're gonna come back to that chair pose, but I want you to find your drishti, your non-moving focal point in front of you before we do that. And once you found it, make some eye contact with it. Inhale those arms overhead. Exhale, sink those hips down and back to our old friend, our chair pose. Our weight is still on our heels. We're looking directly at that focal point, and we're just gonna breathe. Two more breaths here. Maybe you sink a little bit lower. We still keep that heart nice and proud. And when you're ready, I want you to bring all of your weight to bear on that right foot, including the toes. Peel the left heel off until we're left on just the toes. And with grace and ease, using that drishti and knitting up that core, step back to a lunge, and then pivot all the way open towards our warrior two. So that back left foot pivots back to be about parallel with the back of your mat. Inhale, those arms sweep forward. That right knee is still over top of that right ankle or slightly behind it. But we've opened the hips up to the side. This should feel different from your warrior one. Arms float at shoulder level. And everyone looks beautiful. You're just gonna breathe for me. Flip both palms. Inhale, straighten that front leg. Exhale, back down. Flip both palms again for me. Inhale up. Exhale, back down. And let's dance with our breath just a little bit more. Inhale, bring that front forearm to rest on the right quad and draw a rainbow overhead with that left hand. It arcs overhead. We keep the shoulders stacked here. Beautiful. On your next exhale, come back to warrior two. Inhale, flip both palms. Inhale to lengthen. Exhale back. On your next inhale, flip just the front palm for me. Reverse that warrior. That left hand can come down the left leg or tuck back behind the lower back. We still keep our shoulders nice and stacked because we're keeping that heart open. Exhale back. Inhale forward to that extended side angle for me. We're not on that knee joint, we're on the quad. Exhale back to warrior two. Flip just the front palm. Inhale, reverse your warrior. Exhale all the way back. Flip both palms for me. Inhale up. Exhale down. This time you're gonna inhale, exhale, cartwheel both hands back down to frame that front foot. Pivot onto those back toes, and you're gonna step that right foot back to your plank position. Option for a vinyasa flow if you wanna take one. Move with your breath. Exhale down. Inhale up. And exhale back into your downward dog. Pedal the feet out once you're here. And there's no rushing in yoga. So if my vinyasa flows are too fast for your body today or too slow for your body today, go where your body wants to go. Coming back towards stillness, inhale the gaze in between the hands. Exhale, walk or float to meet them at the top of your mat in that forward fold. We're doing the exact same thing on the other side. So if you want to guide yourself there, feel free. Inhale for that halfway lift first. Exhale back down. Generous bend in the knees. Inhale, those arms come wide. Scoop the air up. Exhale, pull it down. Open up to your Tadasana. We come back to our Tadasana in between sides to find some centering. So build your mountain. Build your foundation on which we're going to build our balance. And feel yourself knit the core together. So pulling the belly button up as if we're trying to pull the ribcage a little closer together. We're bracing our core here. This is what's going to help us balance. And when you're ready, inhale those arms overhead for me. Exhale, sink down and back into our old favorite Utkatasana or chair pose. Weight is still in the heels, and you find that drishti, that non-moving focal point in front of you. Maybe you sink a little bit lower. The knees still really aren't going over the toes. They're pretty far back. And you're just gonna breathe for 2 more breath cycles. And then when you're ready, with that braced core and that non-moving focal point, I want you to bring all of your weight to bear on that left foot, right heel peels off, and with grace and ease, steps back and opens up towards our warrior two. It's okay if it takes some adjustment once you get there. That's totally fine. Make those adjustments for yourself. Back foot is parallel with the back of the mat. Left knee is on top or behind that left ankle and is not tracking towards the inside of our mat. We're pushing it back out towards the left side. Arms float right here at shoulder level. Beautiful, everybody. Flip both palms for me. Inhale up. Exhale back down. Flip both palms. Inhale up. Exhale back down. Inhale, bring that front forearm to rest in the left quad. Draw your arc overhead. Extended side angle on this side. Breathe, keep those shoulders stacked. Exhale back to warrior two. Flip just the front palm this time. Inhale, reverse your warrior on this side. Exhale, come back to warrior two. Flip both palms for me. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale forward. Exhale back to warrior two. Flip from the front, just the front palm. Inhale, reverse that warrior. Exhale back. Last time. Inhale forward, draw that arc. Exhale back. Flip the front palm. Inhale back. Exhale forward. Flip both palms for me. Inhale up. Exhale down. Inhale, flip both palms, but on your exhale, you're gonna cartwheel those hands back down to frame that front foot. We're on that right heel this time, and you're gonna step that left foot back into your plank position. Option for a vinyasa flow if you'd love to take one. Remembering that cat and cow or child's pose are beautiful options. And we're all gonna meet in a child's pose whenever you're ready. Remember that we can reverse the breath cues on cat and cow if we'd like. And this child's pose, we can feel free to bring our big toes together. The knees can come wide. We can sink the hips back for a wide-legged child's pose if that feels better to the hips. And I want you to come back to your breath. Notice what this new breath count is doing for you. Always take water when you need some, but focus on your breath. Does this new breath count that you might have set the last time we were here still work for you? If it doesn't, figure out why and try to stick with it. Use your breath as a tool to calm the heart rate, to bring the body back down, because we've done a lot of work to elevate that heart rate. And we're not quite done yet, but we're gonna focus on our breath to bring it all back down. Don't forget the pause at the top and at the bottom of your breath cycle at whatever count you're at. But when you're ready, and not a second before, we're all just gonna inhale back up to that tabletop position. Maybe you take a few rounds of cat and cow once you're there. Maybe you just pause in tabletop in your neutral spine. We have one more warrior to go until we flowed through all of them. And it's where our balance is gonna have the most challenge. But I know you can do it. So when you're ready, still trying to conserve that heart rate. We're still trying to kick into that parasympathetic nervous system. Focus on your breath to do that. On an inhale, we're gonna tuck our toes. On an exhale, we can lift the hips up and back for your downward dog. Option to take a vinyasa flow if you'd love to. One of your last chances. If you'd like to flow together, we're gonna inhale forward towards plank. Exhale either all the way or halfway. Inhale up into cobra or upward facing dog. And then exhale back. All at your own breath pace, of course. Inhale that gaze in between the hands. Exhale, walk or float to meet them at the top of your mat in that forward fold. Inhale for that halfway lift, offer that heart up. Exhale back down. And then one of our last chances, on an inhale, the knees come wide, the arms come wider, scoop the air all the way up. Pull it down the midline. Open up to that Tadasana. You feel unmovable, you feel solid. And we're ready to balance in our warrior three. So to do this, again, on carpet, it can be a little bit trickier. That's okay, I believe in you, you can do this. But I want you to bring your gaze down to your feet first. Maybe take a little hop. See where they like to land, you rock. Side to side, front and back, you know all this. Build your foundation. Hands can float out here to the side or right here at heart center. Knit that rib cage together again, brace that core. I want you to find your drishti, your non-moving focal point. Make eye contact with it. Pick a new one if the last one didn't work for you. And when you're ready, I want you to bring all of your weight to bear on that right foot. Left heel peels off till we're just on the left toes. And then we're gonna inhale, that left knee comes up to balance right about at hip height. You're gonna flex through that bottom left foot. And from here, as if we're slow motion kicking into a wall behind us, you're gonna bring that left foot back behind you, straightening it out. Feet are still flexed. Those arms can float at a T or at heart or in front of you or behind you or almost wherever. But find your balance here. If you're wobbling, it means your body is working, and we love to see it. Engage your core. Keep breathing. And your next inhale, as slowly as we got there, I want you to bring that left knee back up. And exhale it down. Enjoy the heat for a minute before you shake it away. Shake that right foot out. Everyone did wonderfully with that. We have one more side to go. So if you want to guide yourself there, feel free. Build your foundation again. Notice where you feel the most stable. Bring your weight to bear on that left foot. Right heel peels off. We knit the rib cage together. Our spine is nice and tall. We're making eye contact with that focal point. Inhale like a puppet on a string. That right knee comes up. Exhale, slow motion kick into that imaginary wall behind you. Now that foot could float up here near the hip. It could float down here. We could be here. We could be anywhere, and you're still doing full expression of Warrior 3. Focus on your breath. Trust your body. If you're wobbling, you're working. We love to see it. Hands can float wherever they'd like. Breathe. And on your next inhale, as slowly as we got into it, I want you to bring that right knee up. Exhale it back down, and then shake it all away. Fantastic job, everybody. When you're ready, inhale those arms overhead. Exhale with a nice flat back to the earth. Generous bend in the knees. Inhale for that halfway lift off of that heart up. Exhale back down. Fingertips going to tent on the mat. You're going to step back with the right foot and then the left foot. Option for your last vinyasa flow of class, if you'd love to take one before we all meet in a wide-legged child's pose. Move with your breath if you're doing a vinyasa flow, and then we'll all meet in that place of restoration. And I want you to come back to your breath. Surprise, surprise, right? Come back to that breath count. Stick with it. Know that it can be a little overwhelming or a little scary to focus on your breath so much, and also to have so much active control over what your breath feels like. It's okay that that makes you nervous or uncomfortable, or it feels unnatural. That's all okay. Just try to stick with it. Calm the body down. I know you can do it. I want you to come back to that intention that you set, if you set one. Reflect on how that helped you through class today. Maybe in more active ways or more passive ways. Or reflect if your intention had nothing to do with class and instead to do with the day or the weekend or the week or just life right now. That's okay. But when you're ready, like really ready, and your heart rate has calmed down, and you found your breath count, and you're ready to finish this class out all together, when all of that is true for you, we're going to inhale back up to that tabletop position. Classic. You can take a few final rounds of cat and cow if that makes you happy. And then whenever we're ready, and however is most comfortable for you to get there, we're coming to a seated position on our mat. So making sure there's enough room to lay back down behind us, I want you to plant your feet on your mat so your knees face up towards the ceiling like mountains. Inhale first to hug the legs in, nice straight back. Exhale, lean the body back until our arms are just about straight if we're holding on to our knees. And then let that right hand come out and that left hand come out. And kind of like a mummy getting back into bed at the end of the day, we're just gonna lower ourselves down for a count of 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All the way down. Hug those knees into the chest, just in case the core didn't do enough work today, you know. You can rock side to side here, or you can make circles on the ceiling with your knees, making sure that if you circle one way, you also reverse and circle the other way, just like we did at the beginning of class. And then coming back to stillness, I want you to hug that right leg in towards the chest, let the left leg extend long on your mat. And then use that left hand to guide the right knee across the body towards the left. Now the thing here is that we're trying to keep both shoulders equally planted on our mat. So if my right shoulder was popping off the mat like this, I would bring the knee back towards center. That right arm can be out at a T or at a goalpost. That left hand can rest on the thigh or can also open up. And if that right hip, knee, or ankle, or anything is uncomfortable because it's floating high off the ground, I want you to decrease the angle in your knee and just bring that right foot down towards the ground. Maybe the gaze comes over the right shoulder. And we just feel the resetting benefits of our twist. Inhaling that gaze back towards center first. Exhale, that right knee can follow. Inhale the left leg to join the right, hug them in. Same thing on the other side. I want you to hold on to that left leg, the right leg extend long on your mat. Very gently guide that left knee across the body towards the right, keeping shoulders equally planted on your mat. Maybe the gaze comes over that left shoulder. And we sink into the twist on this side. Notice where the body is holding tension and let it go. When you're ready, inhaling the nose back towards center first, and then the body can follow. Hug both knees into the chest for me last time. Maybe you reach on the inside of your knees for the outside of your feet and open up into your happy baby. As if we're stamping our feet on the ceiling. You can rock side to side. You can extend out one leg and then the other. You can guide the soles of your feet together in a kind of a Supta Baddha Konasana. Whatever feels good to your body. Not to worry if we beach ourselves on one side. Babies do it all the time and they're just fine. Releasing those feet back down, flexing through the feet. Bring them back down towards the mat, knees face up towards the ceiling again. Hands come out to the side of the body. And I want you to walk your heels in as close to your body as you can. You're just gonna press into the feet to lift the hips off the mat in your bridge pose. Maybe the hands stay out to the side, maybe you clasp them underneath the bridge, like we did in our humble warrior. But we're just gonna pause here for as long as it feels good for you to do so. And when it feels more like work and less like restoration, you can bring the hips back down. Very last time, hug those knees into the chest. And if you're ready and there are no final asanas you'd like to take for your own practice, you can let both legs extend long on your mat, the toes fall away from each other. Then hands can come to the side of the body, palms can face up to collect energy or can face down to find grounding, whatever you need. Shavasana is secretly the hardest and most important part of our yoga practice. So I want you to just let yourself trust your mat and relax everything into it. Very gently bring the awareness back to your body by wiggling the fingers and the toes, making small circles with the wrists and the ankles. Inhale those arms overhead and point the toes, taking the full body stretch like you're just getting out of bed for the very first time today. On your exhale, I want you to roll to your right side, using your bicep as a cushion for your head. For the last time altogether, we'll reflect on those intentions if we set them, letting them go if they no longer serve us, holding them in if we wish to carry them with us for the rest of our day, or our weekend, or our week. Taking the time to feel how your body thanks you for the work you put in for it today, for putting it first. Spreading the fingertips on that left hand wide, feeling the connection between each fingertip and the ground in front of you. On an exhale, when you're ready, you're going to press into that palm to come back to seated at the top of your mat, where we're going to end class all together. Once we're here, inhaling those palms overhead to touch. We'll exhale them down the midline, pausing at the forehead, maybe think kind thoughts. Pausing at the lips, maybe speak kind words. And pausing finally at the heart, may we have kind intentions to ourselves and to those around us. Thank you all so much for sharing your practice with me this morning, not this evening. May you be happy, may you be safe and healthy. May you walk this earth with peace and at ease, and may you find the space to help others along your way. Namaste, yogi. All right.